In 1998, Lawrence Garrison and his brother Lamont were students at Howard University in Washington. They both worked for the Justice Department and planned to attend law school. But a man who had fixed their car was arrested on drug charges. He told investigators that the Garrisons had been involved.
And they questioned. That's when they showed me pictures of Tito Bear. They asked, have you ever seen this guy? I said, yeah, he fixed my car.
The repairman could have received a 10-year jail sentence for drug distribution. The only way to reduce that sentence was to say someone else was involved. Critics of mandatory sentences say people suspected of violating drug laws often falsely accuse others. Julie Stewart is president of Families Against Mandatory Minimum Sentences.
Have a shorter sentence, and so they'll give someone up. Other times people actually even make up names and say, well, yeah, so-and-so did this. You know I saw him one time.
Lamont Garrison remembers being given the chance to reduce his sentence.
And they said, okay, Mr. Garrison, it's your opportunity, to help yourself. And I said, well, help myself out. What do you mean? Well, you know what this is about. You guys were doing wrong, X, Y, Z. You got to tell us what you were doing. I said, well, I wasn't doing anything wrong, so it's nothing to talk about.
They call it the best tool in their arsenal because they can hold that hammer over a defendant's head and say, if you don't either give us more information, you're going to get this 5 or 10-year sentence.
I think this might be the latest one.
The Garrisons were never charged with drug possession, just conspiracy. A federal jury in Virginia ruled against them because of the statements of the repairman and his brother. Government lawyers presented no other evidence.
So there was such an enormous sensitivity around the crack cocaine issue that I think you could have taken just about anybody to trial and charged them, charged them with some sort of crack cocaine offense and found them guilty.
Lawrence Garrison served 12 years in jail. His brother served almost 14. The repairman was sentenced to 18 months. The Garrisons no longer have any interest in the law. They say the system is corrupt. I'm Jim Tedder.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. You probably have heard of comic book heroes like Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man. But what about Tom, the motorcycle shop owner, Joe Knight, and Karen Berman? Tom, Joe, and Karen all appear in a comic book called Financial Intelligence. But Mr. Knight and Ms. Berman are real people. In 2006, they wrote a book called Financial Intelligence, a manager's guide to knowing what the numbers really mean. It was written for people who need to learn quickly about accounting. The book explains in simple ways, often complex methods of keeping financial information. It became a bestseller. In June, publisher Smarter Comics released a comic book that provides the same information in easy-to-understand picture form. The new book is a combination of a textbook and a graphic novel. It tells the story of Tom, a mechanic who must quickly learn how to direct the motorcycle repair shop his father founded. Tom has no experience with finance and is struggling with the business. Joe Knight and Karen Berman help him. Artist Dave Wachter made illustrations for the comic book. Franco Arda is the founder and head of Smarter Comics. He formerly worked as an investment banker. He started the company almost 3 years ago with his own money. He wanted to create educational comic books that increase understanding. Franco Arda notes that many people grew up with comics. He says pictures, combined with written text, can help people learn an idea much more quickly than just text alone. This explains the expression, "A picture says 1,000 words." Financial intelligence will help readers quickly understand many of the major areas of accounting. The new comic book is available in paperback. The website entrepreneur.com named Smarter Comics to its list of 100 brilliant companies of 2012. The company has created comic book versions of more than 10 other books. These include Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, and The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Later this year, Smarter Comics plans to release a comic book by rapper 50 Cent. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. You can read, listen, and learn English with more stories about business and other subjects at voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Education Report. What is the best way to learn a new language? A small study of foreign language learning in adults compared two methods. One is known as the explicit or classroom method. This is the kind of traditional classroom teaching where students are taught a lot of information about grammar rules. The other method is known as the implicit or immersion method. The idea here is to learn much the way children do when they learn a native language. That is, by being with native speakers and absorbing the language that surrounds them, generally without a lot of explanation. Teachers may combine these two methods into what Professor Michael Ullman calls immersion-style classroom teaching. But is that necessarily a better way to learn a language? Mr. Ullman was the senior investigator for the new study. He is a professor of neuroscience at Georgetown University Medical Center in Washington. He says he was surprised to find that combining the two methods might not help the brain in processing the new language. If he had to learn a language, what would he do? One possibility would be to start with classroom and then go to immersion. But he says there is a possibility that classroom could hurt later immersion. That is one possibility in interpreting the data. The Public Library of Science published the study earlier this year. The 21 adults in the experiment learned Brocanto 2, a 13-word language created for the study. The words and grammar rules relate to a computer game similar to chess that the learners played. For example, Blom Nemo Lu Neep Li Praz means the square Blom piece switches with the neat piece. The researchers tested the people 3 to 6 months after they had learned the language to see how well they could remember it. The study found that those who had learned it with the immersion method had brain waves similar to those of native speakers of a language when speaking that language. Professor Ullman says those who trained with the classroom method also became more native-like in their brain processing. But only the immersion group showed full native-like processing of the grammar. Still, he says teachers should not make any curriculum changes based on his findings. He says further research is needed. And it may be, for example, that a combination of classroom and immersion might be best. But we don't know that. For VOA Special English, I'm Mario Ritter.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Many Americans start to closely follow weather reports in the early fall during the Atlantic hurricane season. Predicting the strength and movement of these huge storm systems is of crucial importance. Thanks to new supercomputers, meteorologists for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, are getting better at predicting the weather as far as 6 days out. Hurricane Sandy hit the East Coast last October and caused deaths and widespread damage. It was one of the costliest storms in United States history. At the time, some people blamed meteorologists for not correctly predicting the path of the storm. But weather forecasting is extremely difficult, says Ben Kiger. He is the Director of Central Operations at NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Prediction in College Park, Maryland. Ben Kiger says oceans are another issue because they closely interact with the atmosphere and have a huge effect on storms. NOAA has spent about $20 million on 2 new supercomputers in an effort to improve the dependability of its forecasts. It takes a huge amount of computational power to examine data from weather satellites, ground stations, and other sources. It then takes a lot of power to predict temperature, air pressure, humidity, and wind speed. But human brains and experience are still very important to the process. Meteorologists at the National Centers for Environmental Prediction scan the same data that the supercomputers get before issuing a weather report. NOAA issues worldwide forecasts every 6 hours, every day of the year. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. A United Nations report predicts that world rice production will be higher this year than last year. The report is from the Food and Agriculture Organization. The FAO says the global rice harvest should be almost 2% higher this year, mainly because of increased production in Asia. Large gains are expected in Bangladesh, Burma, China, India, Pakistan, the Philippines, and Thailand. Also, the FAO predicts a recovery for rice harvests in Africa. Production increases are expected to be led by Mali, Nigeria, and Senegal. In other parts of the world, the report predicts that rice harvests will be lower in the European Union and the United States. Two reasons for this are unusually dry weather and falling rice prices, which have led some farmers to plant other crops. Smaller rice harvests also are expected in Latin America and the Caribbean. Concepcion Calpe is an economist with the FAO. She says good harvests in Asia will lead to reduced demand in the global rice trade this year. Demand in global trade is expected to fall 900,000 tons to about 34 million metric tons. Ms. Calpe says one reason is because a lot of the major importers like Indonesia or the Philippines or even Bangladesh have harvested very good crops. Another reason is because some of them, like the Philippines, have set limits on how much they are willing to import. The FAO says prices for rice have stayed high for several reasons. These include higher costs for fuel, fertilizer, and, in some areas, labor. One country where prices remain high is China. Concepcion Calpe says the high prices raise questions about official Chinese reports of record harvests. In Thailand, a government price support program has led rice exports to fall by 20% to less than 8 million tons. The program keeps prices for Thai rice exports above market prices. As a result, the FAO says exporters like Australia, India, and Vietnam have captured a larger market share. Ms. Calpe notes that Burma could become a major exporter of rice. Many Western governments have eased trade restrictions on Burma recently because of its efforts at political and economic reform. Foreign investment and increased productivity in Cambodia might also help that country export more rice. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can read, listen, and learn English with more news about agriculture at voaspecialenglish.com.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Kid Pan Alley is a non-profit organization that holds songwriting workshops for students across the United States. The organization recently visited a school in the Anacostia area of Washington. The children presented a concert with the help of songwriter and recording artist Paul Reisler. He established Kid Pan Alley in 1999. Since then, he has worked with more than 35,000 students and produced more than 2,200 songs. He says the power of music can teach children skills they might not learn in school. He believes the American educational system is focused too much on standardized tests designed to measure knowledge. But Paul Reisler says we now live in a creative economy. He says his group is trying to inspire children to be creative. At Orr Elementary School in Anacostia, 95% of students come from poor families. Marlon Ray is the school's dean of students. He says some of the children have difficult lives, but he says these kids still want to strive for greatness. Jonna Turner is director of programs at the school. She says the 4th and 5th grade students are often focused on more than school. Some have to help their families or live in homeless shelters. A shooting took place in April directly in front of the school. No one was injured, but the incident affected the whole community. Students are often influenced by what happens around them. Still, Orr Elementary School has a positive, hopeful atmosphere. Marlon Ray says the workshop and concert made possible by Kid Pan Alley created good memories that will last for years. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, welcome to Health in Special English. There is more evidence suggesting that being bilingual is good for your brain. A new study found that older adults who have spoken 2 languages since childhood showed better mental skills than those who speak just 1 language. Earlier studies showed that the ability to speak 2 languages, or bilingualism, seemed to favor the development of these heightened skills. The study appeared in the Journal of Neuroscience. Brian Gold was the lead author of the study. He is a neuroscientist at the University of Kentucky College of Medicine. Dr. Gold and his team asked people to sort colors and shapes in a series of simple exercises. They used brain imaging to compare how well 3 groups of people switched among these exercises. The groups were bilingual seniors, monolingual seniors, and younger adults. The imaging showed different patterns of activity in the frontal part of the brain, in an area used for processing those tasks. Dr. Gold says the results suggest that bilingual subjects use their brain more efficiently. Dr. Gold notes that knowing a second language made no difference for the young adults. They did better at the exercises than both groups of older people. But he says the older bilingual adults appear to have built up a surplus from a lifetime of increased mental activity. He says his research confirms an earlier study on bilingualism among patients with Alzheimer's disease. That study showed that bilingual speakers suffered more brain damage, but were able to think at the same level as patients with less damage. Dr. Gold says he believes the new study confirms that bilingualism can protect brain performance. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. South America's Amazon is the largest tropical rainforest and river system on Earth. But the Amazon is disappearing at the rate of about 800,000 hectares a year. This deforestation is caused by an increase in agriculture and cattle ranching and the building of roads and dams. Another cause is the illegal cutting of trees for logging companies. Now, a new study says ancient Amazonian farming methods could offer valuable lessons for today. The study looks at the pre-Columbian period. Christopher Columbus and other European explorers began arriving in the Americas in the late 1400s. The researchers studied a coastal wetland area where ancient farm beds and canals remain unchanged. The site is in French Guiana. A widely held belief is that pre-Columbian farmers used a great deal of fire to manage Amazonian ecosystems. But the scientists say their study calls this idea into question. It shows that raised field farmers limited their burning to improve agricultural production. Jose Iriarte from the University of Exeter in England was the lead author of the study. Mr. Iriarte says fire results in the loss of important nutrients for crops. When land is not being used for farming, periods without fire are the most effective in rebuilding soil organic matter and preserving soil structure. So in this sense, he says, we interpreted that they were limiting fires because it was better to grow crops in these raised field systems. He says this fire-free method by the pre-Columbian farmers helped change the seasonally flooded savanna or grassland into productive cropland. Raised fields provide better drainage and soil aeration and also hold moisture during the dry season. This fire-free method of agriculture would have been labor-intensive. It ended when up to 95% of the native people died from diseases brought by the Europeans. Mitchell Power from the Natural History Museum at the University of Utah says, once the Columbian encounter happens, we start to see increased burning and a shift towards dry land farming. People were then clearing forests and making their raised beds in the forests. The European colonizers brought slash and burn methods that remain a threat to the rainforest. Experts say at current rates, more than half of the Amazon's tropical rainforest could be gone by 2030. The study is in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Thousands of protesters, including teachers, students, parents, and pro-democracy activists, marched in Hong Kong in late July. They were protesting a plan to teach Chinese patriotism classes in Hong Kong schools. Organizers said 90,000 people marched to the government headquarters, but police gave a lower estimate of 32,000. The Hong Kong government says the classes are meant to build Chinese national pride. The government plans to require the classes in elementary schools starting in 2015. But the government is urging schools to voluntarily launch the program when schools reopen this September. The curriculum includes a teaching booklet called the China Model. It praises the one-party rule of the Communist Party. However, it says nothing about the crushing of pro-democracy protests in Beijing in 1989. Ting Qing Chan has been teaching primary school for 38 years. He says he was not persuaded by the booklet. I don't even believe the content myself, so it's difficult to teach my students, he says. Chan Ye Long, a 9-year-old student in the march, said, China wants to unify Hong Kong. Our next generation only knows how great China is, but not the bad stuff. Protester Paul Young, a parent of 2 children, says he worries that too much one-sided education is not good for the mental development of young people. The protest was another sign of public concern about what critics see as the Chinese government's interference in the former British colony. Britain returned Hong Kong to China on July 1st, 1997. China promised to let the territory largely govern itself. This year, more than 100,000 people joined a pro-democracy march on July 1st. It was the largest such gathering in 8 years. Many of the protesters demanded that the city's new leader resign. Lang Jun-ying took office earlier that day. He was chosen by a mostly pro-Beijing committee. Willie Lam is a China specialist in Hong Kong. He says people in Hong Kong have lost trust in the Hong Kong government. He says they are afraid the administration of Lian Jun-ying will take orders from Beijing to support the Communist Party and not spread knowledge of China in a fair way. To read, listen, and learn English, go to voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find our caption videos at the VOA Learning English channel on YouTube. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Persutti.
This is the VOA Special English Health Report. Sleep-disordered breathing is a term for a group of conditions that can interfere with normal breathing while people sleep. These include snoring, mouth breathing, and sleep apnea. Sleep-disordered breathing can do more than just leave people feeling tired the next day. It can also affect people's health. In children, the effects can include behavioral and emotional problems. In a new study, researchers asked parents about their children's breathing from when they were babies up to about age 6. The parents also answered questions about behavior at ages 4 and 7. Karen Bonuck at the Einstein College of Medicine in New York led the study of about 11,000 children. She says sleep-disordered breathing was associated with a 50% increase in what she calls adverse neurobehavioral outcomes. These included hyperactivity, aggressiveness, and problems relating to other children. Ms. Bonuck says the more serious the breathing problems, the more serious the behavioral issues were likely to be. Other studies have linked sleep with children's behavior, but this study was extensive enough to reject other possible causes. The study appeared in the journal Pediatrics. An estimated 1 child in 10 snores regularly. A smaller number suffer from other sleep-disordered breathing. How well do you sleep? A popular belief is that sleep gets worse with age. But in another new study, those who reported the fewest problems with sleep quality were people in their 80s. Researchers did a telephone survey of more than 150,000 American adults. Michael Grandner at the University of Pennsylvania Medical School says the original goal was to confirm that aging is connected with increased sleep problems. The survey did find an increase during middle age, worse in women than men. But except for that, people reported that their sleep quality improved as they got older. Or, as Mr. Grandner points out, at least they felt it did. The findings are in the journal Sleep. Health problems and depression were linked with poor sleep. But Mr. Grandner says older people who are not sick or depressed should be reporting better sleep. If not, they need to talk to their doctor. They shouldn't just ignore it, he says, nor should their doctor ignore it. He says healthcare providers generally dismiss sleep complaints from older adults as a normal part of aging. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Get more health news and learn English at voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Health Report. Officials in the United States say deadly abuse of painkillers and other prescription drugs has reached epidemic levels. More than 36,000 people died from drug overdoses in 2008, the latest year available. That was almost as many as from road crashes. More than half of the overdoses involve drugs that need a doctor's approval, and 3/4 of those deaths involved what are called opioid painkillers. These include drugs like methadone, morphine, hydrocodone, also known as Vicodin, and oxycodone or Oxycontin. Death rates from prescription drugs were highest among people 45 to 54 years old. A recent government report said painkiller deaths more than tripled in the past decade. They now top the number of heroin and cocaine deaths combined. The Obama administration released a plan last year to try to deal with the problem. Some abusers seek help at places like the Malibu Beach Recovery Center near Los Angeles. They learn yoga and other ways to deal with anxiety, stress, and pain. Joan Borston heads the center. She says stopping is difficult because in the case of pain pills, the body has stopped producing its natural defenses to pain, and users have to have more and more. Around the country, special drug courts work with addicts to get them counseling and treatment. Marianne Gunn is a retired drug court judge. She now appears on Last Shot with Judge Gunn, a TV program that shows the effect of drugs on users and their families. She says in 1999, the big problem was methamphetamine. And we have addressed that and are continuing to address that. And more over the years, we began to see people being addicted to prescription drugs. James Adams is a pharmacologist at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. He says millions of people live with pain, much of it from arthritis caused by obesity and aging. And it's a real tough problem for a doctor because here you've got a patient with chronic pain, and these patients know exactly how to get what they want. And if that doctor doesn't give it to them, they just go to the next doctor. He says many patients may be able to manage their pain if they lose weight and get exercise and physical therapy. Another solution, California and many other states have registries. These tell doctors and pharmacists what potentially dangerous drugs their patients are already taking. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
Say that you are just counting money, you have so many money, and you are working with money, and so you are so happy. But to be honest with you, my major at university was English and teaching English, and I was so let's say in those days I was so talented in this major.
Where in Afghanistan are you calling from?
Kabul.
Kabul. So
Yeah.
you have a question for us, as we understand.
Yes, however, I had a Google search and I got some idea, but still, it would be very kind of you to explain about elder and older. So, as far as I know, we say I'm older than my brother, but I can't say I'm elder than my brother.
And then I'm going to go to work in Indonesia first. And then I have planned to go to United States, hopefully. I want to get the scholarship.
We have a big problem of environmental issue. But in Kinshasa, I want to give one example in Kinshasa.
My name is Muskin, and I'm a student at college, English language. I'm from Iraq, Iraqi Kurdistan.
I saw a storm attack in tornado.
What do you do in Kyrgyzstan? Do you?
I'm studying in medicine to be doctor.
My family is praying for American nation, for people in Boston.
Are you planning to stay or leave South Korea? Are you worried about your own security?
Yeah, it's the important question. My family also asked me like this.
Yeah.
We study modern architecture and ancient architecture. We study also physics and math.
We are working now in Egypt in our company on translating Windows 8 from English to Arabic.
We have 8 people in the same room.
I'm from Afghanistan. I'm studying in India.
My name is Bahadur, and originally I'm from Iran, and I'm very happy. I'm so happy to join with you.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report in Special English. Americans are buying more products and services than ever before through the internet. And the popularity of online sales is likely to spread to other countries. Online sales now represent as much as 1/10 of all retail sales in the United States. Experts say online shopping hit records in both November and December. 57% of Americans have bought something electronically. This has led traditional stores to seek new ways to keep their customers loyal. Store owners worry continuing growth in online sales will hurt their business. Cornell University marketing professor Ed McLaughlin says they should be worried because any products that can be sold online will be. Ed McLaughlin says traditional stores can keep their customers by selling goods like clothing, which buyers may want to see and try on before purchasing. He says the stores could also offer things that are difficult to ship. He says some stores can please customers by offering to set up or repair electronic products. Bill Martin is the founder of ShopperTrack. His business helps stores learn about their customers. He told us that traditional stores offer a social experience that some people enjoy. He says there is still a lot of emotion in the buying decision, and it is hard to get that emotional feeling from shopping online. So, there is still a place for brick and mortar stores. Bill Martin says traditional stores can provide goods to buyers faster than online businesses, and some retailers use their websites to persuade people to visit their stores. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
This is the VOA Special English Health Report. The World Health Organization says the number of cases of tuberculosis has been falling since 2006. Also, fewer people are dying from TB. But a study by researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, says smoking could threaten this progress. Nearly 20% of all people use tobacco. The smoke also sickens millions of non-smokers. The new study predicts that smoking will produce an additional 34 million TB deaths by 2050. Efforts to control the spread of tuberculosis have mainly focused on finding and treating infections. Much less effort has been made to understand the causes. Dr. Anthony Fauci is director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. He says more than 1 million people each year die from TB, and millions more get infected. It's still a very important problem. So we have to do the practical thing, and we have to do the fundamental research things at the same time. Smoking does not cause tuberculosis. Bacteria cause the infection. But the study says smoking affects the nervous system in a way that makes an inactive case of TB more likely to develop into an active one. Study co-author Stanton Glantz is director of the University of California's Center for Tobacco Control Research and Education. He says tobacco use could increase the number of people expected to die from tuberculosis between now and 2050 by about 26%. The study is described as the first to identify a direct link between tobacco use and rates of TB infection and death. Professor Glantz says the results should guide those creating health policies and TB control efforts. If you want to control the infectious disease of tuberculosis, you have to control the tobacco industry and the tobacco industry's efforts to increase tobacco use, particularly in developing countries where tuberculosis is a big problem. The study predicts that the situation will only get worse if tobacco companies continue to sell more of their products in those countries. It says strong efforts to control tobacco would not only reduce deaths from smoking-related diseases like emphysema, heart disease, and lung cancer. Those efforts would also prevent millions of deaths from tuberculosis. The study appeared in BMJ, the British Medical Journal. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. Business is the most popular subject for international students in the United States. At last count, 22% of foreign students at American colleges and universities were studying business and management. The Institute of International Education in New York says engineering was the second most popular field. Thomas Kosei is a professor of marketing and business at the University of Richmond in Virginia. He says international students who want to study business need to have good English skills. At the same time, native English speakers who work with foreign companies may need to learn some new communication skills themselves. This is because the world has more non-native speakers of English than native speakers. At the University of Richmond, teams of graduate students work with companies seeking to enter the American market. The students learn about writing market entry studies. The reports are written in English, but Professor Kosei tells his students to consider who will read them. He said his students have to write the report so that it can be understood by someone who is an English speaker but not a native English speaker. For example, he tells his students to avoid jargon and other specialized terms that people might not know in their own language. This can be good advice even when writing for other native speakers. But effective communication involves more than just words. Kay Westerfield is director of the International Business Communication Program at the University of Oregon. She says you must have the language skills as well as cultural intelligence. Cultural intelligence means the need to consider local behaviors in everything from simple handshakes to speaking to large groups. Still, Kay Westerfield says the ability of foreign workers to speak English is becoming more important to companies looking to off-source operations to other countries. Also, she says English skills often provide a competitive edge for business students when they seek jobs. She said, as one business student in West Africa put it, English is a lifeline. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. We offer live English lessons Monday through Friday at the VOA Learning English page on Facebook. You can also read and listen to our programs and find activities for English learners at voaspecialenglish.com. And we have podcasts on iTunes.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. Energy has become an important issue in the American presidential campaign. And gasoline prices, costs that affect almost all Americans, have risen sharply in recent months. For example, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney has criticized President Obama's energy policy. In a newspaper commentary, he said the president has let prices rise while placing too many requirements on the energy industry. One issue in the political debate is a project proposed by the Canadian company TransCanada. Its Keystone XL pipeline would stretch more than 3,000 kilometers from Alberta, Canada, to several oil processing centers in the United States. If completed, the project would cost about $13 billion and transport over 1 million barrels of oil a day. The Republican Party has criticized President Obama for delaying work on the oil pipeline. Republican Doc Hastings serves in the United States Congress. He says the party wants to use all of the nation's energy resources. Mr. Hastings says that would include use of both the Keystone XL pipeline and oil exploration in coastal waters. He says Republicans in the House of Representatives have passed reforms that break down government barriers to America's natural resources. And he says the House has passed legislation that would open coastal areas to new oil exploration and production. In early March, President Obama visited a Daimler truck factory in North Carolina. He told workers that more oil exploration is not an easy answer to the nation's energy problems. He said the United States has 2% of the world's oil reserves, but uses 20% of the world's oil. He said this means that even with increased oil production, there is no easy answer to high gasoline prices. Workers at the North Carolina factory build alternative fuel vehicles. Mr. Obama told them that new sources of energy mean more jobs. The president has called for tax breaks on clean energy vehicles and urged local governments to buy them. He also has asked lawmakers to end $4 billion in support for the oil and gas industries. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. You can download texts and MP3s of our programs and learn English at voaspecialenglish.com. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. Did you make a New Year's resolution? Some of you shared your goals at the VOA Learning English page on Facebook. And no surprise, many of you said at least one of your goals for 2012 is to speak English better. Daniel Kwan even went so far as to declare, "I'm definitely going to try to study English at least an hour a day." Jose Antonio Velarde says, "My first resolution is to speak English as fluently as my Spanish." And Tuti Rial says, "My New Year's resolution is to be able to speak English and Mandarin fluently and be a better person." Juwita Zulmi says she wants to improve her English and get a scholarship to study overseas. Another goal for 2012, a new boyfriend. Durley Johanna Barreto has these two resolutions: to speak English fluently and to get a job. Hsian Kim also has two goals: to lose weight and improve speaking English. And Katie Cecalina has these resolutions: don't eat meat, I'll take it easy, then to learn Spanish or Italian and find my real love. The last ones will be the most difficult, she thinks. Rafa Mintz's main goal is finishing high school and getting into a university. Lola Wesquito Octobrata says, "I am going to get married and finish my undergraduate study with good results." And Uma Sharif is ready for the next step this year, a master's degree. Handri Permana has this resolution: be more meaningful before my time's up on earth. And Handri has this advice for others: have fun seriously in life. DNL Pajirian has fun playing the video game Defense of the Agents, or DOTA. DNL says, my New Year's resolution is, I want to spend more time on my studying than playing Dota. Refki Aditya's resolution is to not be lazy about studying anymore. And Noor Chenifa says, I want to be the best in my national examinations, to be a braver girl, and to take a scholarship abroad. Shara Radinka offered this comment. My resolutions are to pass vocational school, get a scholarship, and visit Singapore and Malaysia. And Sita Adyuda is thinking of Australia in 2012. I wish I could have a career abroad in my dreamland of Oz. And let's see, as I'm an optimist, I'm going to make it real this year. Ha ha ha. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. Go to voaspecialenglish.com to read, listen, and learn English with our programs and activities. You can also find live lessons at the VOA Learning English page on Facebook.
This is the VOA Special English Health Report. Heart disease is the world's leading cause of death, yet most cases can be prevented. Doctors say reducing deaths from heart disease will require not only changes in the way people live, it will also require changes in public policy and better public knowledge about differences in heart disease between men and women. Two conditions, coronary artery disease and microvascular disease, can both reduce blood flow to the heart. Experts at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston say heart disease in women is more likely to be caused by microvascular disease. Finding this condition may require tests other than an angiogram. An angiogram is a kind of X-ray test. Doctors use it to look for a buildup of fatty plaque material that can block arteries. Arteries carry oxygen-rich blood away from the heart to the rest of the body. The World Health Organization says heart disease kills 18 million women a year. And these are not just older women. Carrie Vincent had a heart attack after giving birth to her first child at the age of 31. Ms. Vincent is now taking her message to women at meetings in their homes through an organization called Sister to Sister. Irene Paulin started Sister to Sister to educate women about heart disease. Ms. Paulin urges women to learn about their blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and other risk factors for heart disease. Ms. Paulin teamed up with a heart specialist at Brigham and Women's Hospital. Dr. Joanne Foody works mostly on prevention efforts. She says, the good news is we know that 90% of heart disease is preventable by reducing risk. That means not smoking, and it means controlling or avoiding diabetes. It also means keeping a healthy weight and eating healthy foods. And it means exercising at least 30 minutes on most days and managing or reducing stress. Dr. Dariush Mozaffarian at the Harvard School of Public Health also has other advice. He says people should eat more fish, whole grains, vegetables, vegetable oils, and nuts, and reduce the amount of salt and trans fats in their diets. Trans fats can increase the risk of heart disease. Heart disease increasingly affects women in developing countries. Dr. Mozafarian places a lot of blame on the global epidemic of obesity. He says people are getting chronic diseases not from eating too much, but eating poorly. And so, in fact, what they're not eating is actually probably mostly what's harming them. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.